Reddit, what is a time your school teacher's staff overreacted beyond belief? Not me, I already posted mine, but a kid I worked with. I was his social worker at school. I worked for an external agency and was stationed at the school. Not the usual social worker you would think of. He got therapy with me every week for his ADHD and general issues, in quotes, because he was a great kid, just couldn't focus. Most of the issues were caused by incompetent adults. Now, this kid had failed 9th grade twice already, but was really great at science. Science is his thing. He had tested out of earth science and passed biology and chemistry, the only two classes he passed those first 2 years, so he was in physics. Part of my plan with him was to let him have a stress ball to channel his energy into while not disrupting his class. All his teachers agreed with this, even physics teacher. It was working really well. He was getting confident and was either passing or very close to passing all his classes. One day he comes in crying. He is an African American kid in a high crime urban school. If he's crying, there's something very serious happening here. He says he was squishing his stress ball and the teacher snatched it away and told him that one day, "You'll be homeless and I will throw pennies at you in the street." Direct quote. I'll never forget that crap. Now, I may be a social worker, but I'm not an idiot. Teenagers exaggerate. So I brought him right back to class, after letting him calm down and wash his face. No need for embarrassment. Here, I pulled her out of her class and have him tell the story again, in front of her. He repeats it verbatim. I ask her if that's true. She says it is, but that he doesn't understand the stress I'm under. I flipped my freaking lid. He has to understand your stress. Listen here, lady, etc. Kid stood there with his mouth open. I think it's the first time a white person ever stood up for him, which is sad. Next time I made a home visit to his house, his grandmother had baked me the most delicious cookies I've ever had. Even thinking about this story makes my blood boil, and this was 3 years ago. By the way, the kid graduated high school 2 years later. Having faith in someone goes a long way. My 9th grade English teacher lost a test of mine and went off on me for it. Told me that I wasn't there so I couldn't have taken it. I showed her my attendance from that day and the entire class backed me up. She went on to tell me that I was a failure and a liar in front of the class. We got into a huge argument and I said frick it and walked out of her class. I couldn't believe it. Holy crap, I have to stop reading this thread. My blood pressure's getting way too high. Had a crazy art teacher. She was the happiest person on earth one second and the devil himself the next. We had a test on which we reviewed before taking it. She forgot to erase the board. Obviously us high school students were going to look at the board because why not? She flipped out, punched boards, pushed desks, and accused us of cheating, which I guess is technically right, while screaming at the top of her lungs. Then she threatened to fail all of us for the year. Somehow I passed this class with a 110%. That's not cheating. That's the teacher failing to properly administer the test. When I was in my freshman year of high school, my sister was a senior. We were talking in the hallway and she kissed me on my forehead before leaving. We are an affectionate family. My algebra teacher, who hated both of us, happened to see, after calling me into the hallway to explain why PDA is wrong. He called to the front office to tell the principal he had caught 2 girls making out in the hallway. By lunchtime my sister had been called to the office. He didn't give my name, only hers, and everyone was calling her a lesbian. When she tried to explain what happened it became incest lesbian. Frick, going to school in a small town. He didn't give my name, only hers. That is messed up. He knew if he said your name, the principal would know he was just trying to throw crap around. There was a guy at my high school with fetal alcohol syndrome. We lived in a small town in Montana, but he wanted so badly to be gangster. He told everyone 50 Cent was his cousin and some other things along those lines. Well, he had a notebook that we was writing raps in that he forgot in a classroom one day. The teacher read it and the school expelled him for writing violent poetry. I remember that one of the lines was me and my cousin Fiddy robbing stores and fricking W. That's actually not that bad of a line. It rhymes. I'm in an elective class on the first day and the teacher makes a big deal about getting the book for the class or we will fail. The kid behind me shares his life story about how he works 60 hours a week, takes care of his little brother and how he wouldn't be able to get the book right away. The teacher shakes his head and moves on. The next day we get to class and 4 of us don't have it. Too lazy to buy a book that tells me what a keyboard and a mouse is. Teacher asks who and who doesn't have book and I raise my hand. He sees me and rips me a new one. How he doesn't pity me that I have to work 60 hours a week or take care of my brother and that it is a privilege to be in his class. He yells at me like this for 10 minutes straight. I looked back and the guy behind me had his head down and I think I heard him crying. After class I met up with the dude, bought him lunch and we made fun of the teacher the whole time. In high school I emailed a pre-AP English teacher after an essay that contained the line, "I don't understand why I was given this grade. I would like to come talk to you about it." She reported me to the administration and 2 administrators took me into an office and chewed me out before giving me Saturday school. Luckily the teacher who ran Saturday school knew me and liked me. I was a good kid who up until that point had never got into trouble. She asked me why in the world I of all people was here in Saturday school. I said it was a long story and she just had me deliver one thing to another teacher and told me to go home. I showed the email to another teacher to ask his opinion on whether it was bad and he had no clue why my original teacher had reported me. Bad teachers hate getting called out. Edit. Added the word bad because there are numerous teachers that will use being called out as a way to improve. They once locked all the girls in the cafeteria and told us to stop showing so much cleavage because 2 girls had been sent to the front office for wearing low-cut shirts. Obviously it was a serious epidemic. I have really bad hay fever. It was spring. The pollen was out. I was sneezing every few minutes. My science teacher suspended me for 2 days for disrupting class when I sneezed. One time I stifled a sneeze, and my 5th grade teacher thought I was yawning and asked if I wanted to go to the nurse's office to take a nap. I told her I wasn't yawning and she called me a liar and threatened to punish me if I did it again. I was in French class in junior high and we were going around the room saying something that we disliked. What I thought of at the time was that I hated stains because I felt like I ruined too many of my clothes by accidentally ending up with stains. So I said that out loud in French and my teacher immediately had a change of expression and asked me what that was supposed to mean. I didn't know how to clarify what a stain was, so I just said in English, stains. I hate stains. You can't get them out. Some classmates were laughing at this point. She starts to cry and tells me to get out and wait in the hall. She is known to cry very easily, so that wasn't too shocking with this teacher. I'm confused as heck and go wait outside. After a few minutes that she used to compose herself, she comes outside and starts to lecture me on how inappropriate that was. I'm still totally dumbfounded and have to ask what was wrong with it. She apparently thought I was making a sexual reference to just stains. I now spend another few minutes having to convince her that I was not referring to anything sexual and that I really just hate stains because they ruin my clothes and that I have to do my own laundry. She eventually believes me, or at least doesn't want to continue to listen to my various adventures and staining my clothes, and lets me go back in the class. Definitely the weirdest overreaction from a teacher to a totally mundane and innocent answer that I've had. TLDR. Said I didn't like stains. Teacher cries and sends me out of the class thinking it was a sexual reference. She sounds like a pervert XD. It's her fault that her mind is in the gutter. In 3rd grade, for MLK Day, our assignment was to color a picture of Martin Luther King Jr., and the colorings would be hung in the hallway. Everyone was using the same brown crayon, so everyone's picture looked exactly the same. Unlike my classmates who were coloring a picture, I had spent my own time reading about MLK, and my favorite quote was he talked about how people shouldn't be judged by the color of their skin. So I colored him green. I remember thinking that MLK would have probably enjoyed someone being different. The teacher refused to hang my coloring up in the hallway with the other kids, and she called a meeting with my mom to explain how I was being racially insensitive. Mom told her that she completely missed the point of MLK and that it might be more productive to actually teach what King stood for rather than waste time in a classroom having her kids color pictures of him. The teacher got a lecture from my mom about King's passion for civil disobedience, and mom refused to leave until my green MLK was hung in the hallway among the rest of the class's boring but same brown crayon pictures. 3rd grade teacher got frickin' told. 1. Either A. Go hug your mama right now, or B. Send her an online message saying that you love her. People never do that enough. 2. I think that you perfectly understood what MLK said, considering you were 8. Kudos to you. When I was in high school I was a drama kid. My teacher had a few intro to drama classes that I occasionally helped out with. During one of their shows, I went into the class that was backstage and hung out there for a bit, during which time a phone alarm went off. Now, you aren't supposed to have your phones on at any time during a play, and since the person who left their phone on was on stage at the time, I ruffled through her bag, turned it off, and put it back. Flash forward to a few hours after the show, I get a phone call from a friend of mine. It was the girl who left her phone on using my friend's phone to call and ask where I hid her phone. I said I put it back in her bag, but she couldn't find it. The next day, in the middle of one of my classes, the police show up and pull me out, basically telling me to return the phone or her mother was going to press charges. I thought it was ridiculous and laughed, saying that I had returned it and had a few witnesses to back me up. There were quite a few performers in the class that were waiting for their parts. A couple classes later, I get pulled out by the police again and escorted to the vice principal's office, where I was sat down with the VP, 2 officers, and the girl's mother. The VP said, "We'll give you one last chance to return it. Do it and this all goes away. Don't and you're gonna be in huge trouble." The VP then explained how I wouldn't get to go to college, I'd never be able to vote, and a whole bunch of other crap to try to intimidate me into fessing up to something I didn't do. I told them that I didn't have the phone, they could search me if they wanted to, and that there were other witnesses there. They were never asked about what happened. They then said it didn't matter if I had stolen it. Me pulling it out of the bag and putting it back and alerted the thief of where it was, making me responsible for the theft. I started laughing really hard and explained to them that if the thief wanted to know where the phone was, the alarm going off on the phone would have done that without me pulling the phone out. I got up and left, was never bothered again about it. Best part was that the girl had no idea about any of the stuff going on, so when she found out she was super pissed at her mom. Had a Danish teacher get mad at someone in my class for talking. He ended up throwing a solid brass pencil sharpener after him, hitting the girl next to him, sending her to the hospital because it hit her in the eye. Sophomore year in high school, I was taking Algebra 2 and my teacher started going over problems we had already gone over the day before. Though I should tell him this, so I did, and he promptly started flipping crap. He threatened to throw me out the window and said if I said one more word he would throw me out. I apologized and he actually kicked me out. Me, being confused, said what kicked me out for 2 more days. Say what again? I dare you, I double dare you, mother. I told my professor that I never drank alcohol before. I'm a college senior BTW, and he flipped the frick out. He basically made fun of me and made me feel like crap. Other students, instead of laughing or tagging along, thought it was equally fricked up. You should have told him that your parents were alcoholics and they beat you and were horrible people just to make him feel bad. When my sister was in grade 5, her music teacher got upset because the class wasn't paying attention. He went crazy on them and started yelling and swearing. My sister started to cry because she was really upset and he swore at her to stop freaking crying and then threatened to kill her. She ran out of the classroom and he told another student to go out and find her and bring her back to class or else he really would kill her. My mom found out when she came to pick us up for lunch. We used to go home to eat since we lived close by, and it was not pretty. My mom can be pretty scary. She went psycho on him. Everyone at the school saw, as well as the principal. The principal did not intervene. I'm not sure what kind of trouble he got in, but my sister was taken out of his music class. All the way until I graduated, people always used to bring up my mom. They all thought she was so cool. It gets even better because I saw him a couple of years later at a hardware store and it was super awkward. He asked if my mom was here and I said yes, so he literally booked it out of there. When I was in high school, and this was a year or 2 after Columbine, the entire school was evacuated in the middle of winter. We all sat out in the football bleachers for 2 hours in the freezing cold and no one was allowed to go to their lockers beforehand. Turned out someone had a cassette player in their locker that they'd left running, and rather than stopping when it got to the end, it made a slow repetitive clicking which was overheard and mistaken for a bomb. The entire bank of lockers was ripped out mechanically and moved outside of the building by the bomb squad. It was pretty insane. I always hate the "it's making a noise, must be a bomb." I really freaking doubt anyone who is going to make a bomb is doing to make it beep. It's just way too cliché. My current events teacher in high school threw my pocket umbrella out a third-story window because I was having a slight issue. Less than 2 minutes of fumbling, velcroing it to make it stay close. Jam it up their ass and open it up. My 9th grade health teacher was a 75-year-old, very conservative Catholic woman who was going to retire the next year. We had a health project where we had to make a creative diagram showing the 10 pillars of health. Because it was October, I decided that I would write out the 10 pillars of health on gravestones, stating on the poster that you would die if you didn't follow these. Sad attempt at irony. I got an 80% for being creepy even though I had met all the requirements. When we got to our mental health unit, the teacher somehow got it into her head that those wearing leather jackets, trench coats, and black were psychologically unwell, especially if they chose to accessorize with hats, scarves, sunglasses, or gloves. I had a habit of wearing all of the aforementioned objects because it was freezing cold. I like black, and I did not intend to run around in my 2 warmest hoodies for 3 months. One day, I ran out of jeans, and all that was left was my black pants. She made me stay after class so she could evaluate my mental health and my access to weaponry. I was kind of quiet, but I got along with the other kids pretty well, so I can't imagine that my behavior was what scared her. And no, I do not have access to weaponry. I decided to read Frankenstein. Apparently, such reading material was unhealthy for developing minds and needed to be withheld from me until vacation. And my favorites. During the sex ed unit, she refused to say the proper words for any part of the human anatomy. This got interesting when she had to tell us how sex worked, and how the wee ejected tadpoles which would swim into the lady sack and fertilize the egg. This got even better when one kid, this poor child was the most innocent kid I'd ever met, asked how exactly did the tadpoles get to the egg. It took her about 5 minutes of stuttering and clutching her cross necklace to give an explanation. Someone ended up saying, in short, the guy sticks his dong in her pee. Kid got suspended. She preached to us that abortion and pleasure sex are sins and we would be punished by one of the STDs listed in our books. Then we'd burn in heck. We were required to watch a video of a woman giving birth. When they showed the vagina, she ran to the front of the room to block it with her hand. Someone asked what oral sex was. Another kid tried to explain it, but the teacher flipped her crap, screaming that it was kissing. And yes, we could get the tadpoles from kissing. Last year, my would-be Spanish teacher quit a few weeks before school started for parenting reasons. The school had to put in a long-term substitute teacher as they were looking for a new teacher. This substitute was a retired Spanish teacher, and she really believed in only speaking Spanish in class, even from the start. Since nobody in our class knew a word of Spanish, we had a hard time comprehending what she was trying to teach. After about a month, nobody had learned more than a few common sentences, and our teacher was getting a little fed up. One day when the classroom was at a check, she screamed, "I'm done with this," and walked right out of the room. She never came back, so we ended up using textbooks the rest of the year and actually learned a bit of the language. I think human chaotic. I have a hard time believing a group of students was old or outdated. I wrote an essay in English at age 15 about how I didn't like poetry, just general criticisms surrounding the overthinking and overanalyzing of the mundane. My English teacher was furious. He asked me if I was attacking him personally and made me write another essay on why poetry was actually amazing and apologized to him. Sure, my essay was a little edgy but nothing malicious or personal. Those kind of teachers just suck the love of learning out of kids, I think. Shame on him. A nice, rare case of underreacting. I worked at a summer camp and this story happened in a different division than I worked. Some 10-year-old girl hated and bullied some other girl. Mean girl finds out her victim has a severe allergic reaction to fish. She rubs fish sticks all over her hands during lunch and grabs the poor kid's face. Ambulance comes and everything. Crap was pretty serious. Girl was never punished from what I hear. The camp directors felt she learned her lesson. Entirely confusing outcome. Not like that's attempted murder or anything. Oh, I have another story. At my boarding school, our art teacher only liked the artsy kids and despised everyone else. I am not an artsy kid. I joined the school play since we had to do something after class and she was the director of it. She took my classmates and I to the Goodwill and well, I don't really remember because it wasn't eventful, but apparently my friend and I were playing on our phones. So the play comes and goes and I graduate. A year after I have graduated high school, the art teacher adds me on Facebook. I accept and a day later I receive a Facebook message going along the lines of this: do you remember when we went to the Goodwill for the play? Because I do. Just so you know, while you and your friend were playing on your phones and not helping us look for costumes, I found a $100 bill in the pocket of an old jacket. So hahaha, the joke is on you. I laughed so hard. Like seriously? A year later you send me some BS message about something I never thought twice about. Why? Of course I sent her the message with my friend and we shared a good laugh, but WTFFFF. I bet she didn't even find a $100 bill that day. I bet she made it up because she was so mad about you playing on your phone and thought it was a good way to get back at you. I remember in my grade 8 math class, we had a test. It wasn't a hard test, mainly slopes and intercepts and the like, so I finished it in 30 minutes out of the 60-minute time allotted. Teacher thought I was cheating after I pulled a 95% on the test and said that nobody at this age would finish this quickly, so I was forced to do another test after school. She looked at me like a hawk the whole time and she still argued with me after I handed in that test until I managed to tell her that she had no flipping proof of me cheating. Teachers like that were the bane of my existence growing up. I never used more than half the amount of allotted time and it drove some of them just wild. Physics teacher insisted I was going too fast and would take off points for it. I never changed my method, although I do hope to change his status of employment. He is an incredibly bad teacher and has no right to his position. I mean, my high school band director threw a stand across the room. It was where the now unused choir risers were, so it's not like anyone was even likely to get hurt. Still freaked us. We all knew the guy really was going through the motions waiting for his 20 years. And looking back at how much better his replacement was, he knew little about music. It was an overreaction because someone played early. I mean, they even had a strong attack, which many later directors say they rather a loud mistake than a wimpy attack. My band director, who is probably the second best at the school and my favorite, will throw chairs to scare the crap out of us. Needless to say, it works. This happened in 5th grade. I had a habit of not doing my homework, but I would end up with decent grades by doing well on tests. My homeroom was a teacher that we'll just call Mrs. Bitchface. Now Mrs. Bitchface was an awful woman. When she got mad, she would actually bend over to scream at you on your level. I close my eyes, I can still see her beet red face, contorted with anger. So one day, I was out at recess. I had her class immediately after. Walking back inside, I was shocked to see her on her knees at my locker with half of my stuff strewn across the floor. She looks up and sees me standing there. Come here now. I walk closer. I've been through your whole desk, backpack and now your locker, and I'm not surprised to see you haven't done your homework again. Why? She grabbed me by my neck shoulder and pulled me along, shouting about how we'll see what the principal has to say about this. I tried to get a word in, but was repeatedly cut off. So we get to the principal's office. She tries to explain everything through a filter of crazy. I am deliberately calm. He asks me why I didn't do my homework. Well, I tried to tell her, but she wouldn't listen. No more lies. I put it in my pocket because I didn't want to forget it today. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.